Hi, it's Neil Sean here on Your Entertainment News, and thank you for joining me today with my very special guest, a man who is the maestro of the keyboards of the Blackpool Tower and North Pier organ himself, the brilliantly talented Mr. Kevin Grunill. Remember though, Kevin,
if you miss it, you miss out.
Don't miss Kevin today on Your Entertainment News. Thank you for joining me today, and I'm joined by the brilliantly talented Mr. Kevin Grunill. Kevin, thank you so much for calling in. We're live, of course, in this wonderful Westminster Live studio. The question I want to ask really, first and foremost, is what are you doing in London today?
Well, I'm actually...
Apart from being here.
A bit of a busman's holiday today, really, because I'm not actually playing a concert here. I'm actually going to a concert.
Oh, right.
So a wonderful American organist by the name of Wurlitzer has flown over, especially to do a concert at the Trox here at Limehouse today. So a bit of a busman's holiday. I've come down to support that.
I'm going to ask you about that because you did make a dream come true for me and my dad, Alan, and Mum and everything. We all came to see you one early morning. I think it was a Sunday morning.
It was.
And do you remember I leaned on the organ and a bit fell off? I was really nervous, trying to patch it back on, and you said, "Oh, don't worry, it always happens."
It always happens when you lean on that bit.
When they said to you, first of all, I mean, firstly, how did you get the job? How did that come to you then? You know,
it was quite by accident. To be honest, it was 1997.
Oh, wow.
I was playing the Wurlitzer organ at the Granada Studio Tours complex in Manchester, which was wonderful.
Yeah.
Loved that job, and I came home, and my parents said, "Oh, there's a telephone call for you. Can you contact this number?"
No
back?
Internet or email.
No, that's in them days. No, right. And I phoned the number, and they said, "Oh, this is North Pier. We're looking for an organist for the summer season. Would you be interested?" So I said, I'll get my diary and have a little look and see what we can do. She said, "Well, I can tell you now, it's 24 weeks starting a week on Friday." And it was like, oh, right. Anyway, as luck would have it, apart from 2 or 3 days, it fitted in really well. And that was basically how it all started in Blackpool.
And because, I mean, for me, obviously, I'm too young to remember Reginald Dixon, but he was stuck in everybody's mind because he was the king of it, wasn't he?
Absolutely.
And I've seen interviews, of him since and everything. He seemed such an unassuming man, and just almost like it fell into his lap, if you like. And then he became the king, of Blackpool, didn't he? Everybody would have danced to him, got married to him, engaged to him, on that floor. And when you watch him, I think I read somewhere or I heard him do an interview, and he said he was sometimes doing up to 4 broadcasts a day on BBC and Luxembourg and all of this. Yes. And you forget their fame of, he was mega famous. So I guess for somebody like you, would he have been a hero?
Absolutely. Again, even the current principal organist, Phil Kelsol's played there now for 42 years.
Yeah, I love Phil.
With Phil. So it was great being a member of the team with Phil. Yeah. Again, another childhood hero.
Yeah.
When I started to learn to play the organ, I listened to recordings of Phil and Reginald Dixon and other people like that. Obviously, the tower always had its own sound. There was something just unique about that sound.
Is there something different about that building, that organ?
There is, and I don't know what it is. You play instruments all around the world in different theatres. There's just none which seem to have that acoustic and that richness that the Tower Ballroom has.
Wow. So when you get this, so you've got the job, your mum's got the phone call, you go back in and you say to your mum and dad, "Mum, I've got this job." She must have been over the moon. Because to her son's made it. This is like the palladium of the organ world, isn't it?
Well, the thing is, being from Yorkshire parentage, everything, of course, is quite down to earth.
Yeah.
So it's like, how long?
What's brass?
And the first thing she asked was, "Have you got a suitcase?" And that was the first thing she asked.
Typical mums, yeah. Oh no, but that must be nice. They secretly are very proud, aren't they?
Oh, absolutely. People often say, you've been very lucky through, and I suppose I have. But I often say that luck book is something you create yourself. Yeah. The only thing I can say that I've been exceptionally lucky with are the support of my parents.
Yeah.
You know, going from turning up one day from school and saying to my parents, I want to play the organ. And they said, oh, right, how much is one of them going to cost then? And it was like, about £5,000, you know, which was, at the time was the price of a car.
Yeah, price of a house.
Yeah, you know, and seeing the colour drain from Dad's cheeks.
Yeah.
And things, but nevertheless, they were very supportive, went for music lessons, and it all stemmed from there, really.
And was there a point that you ever wavered from it, you know, because, you know, when you're a kid and you start things, like I remember similarly trying to learn playing the piano and organ, and I was able to listen to a tune and pick it out without reading the music, and she worked out that I couldn't, you know.
Right.
Because, you know, we turned over and I was carrying on, like, you know, and it was Uma Paloma Blanca, do you remember that?
Gosh, yes.
A tune and a half, you know. But I thought it was fabulous, you know. And but you come away and you think, oh, I wish now I'd have stuck it with that. But it was difficult because you do, not ridicule of your friends as such, but they all seem to be something a bit more exciting. And you're spending hours in a room with a woman going, press this key, and you're bored, you know. So you didn't feel ever that, oh, I want to abandon this for a period or anything?
No, it was quite by accident how I got into it, really. I had a bout of glandular fever. I'd be about 12 years old. I was off school for about 6 weeks or so, whatever it was. After 2 weeks, I started feeling better. Like However, the school wouldn't allow me to go back.
Wonderful.
Yeah, you know, in those days. So, and I'd done all the homework, they sent piles of work over, and I'd done all that and things. And Dad had a little sort of chord organ in the corner of the room, played by numbers.
Yeah.
It was terrible. But nevertheless, I thought, well, if Dad can play this, I'm going to have a go at this.
Yeah.
So I learned sort of play by numbers and that was kind of thing, and sort of learnt a few tunes. And that's basically how it happened. One day I said, look, I won't mind learning to play this. And he said, well, look, you'd have to have proper lessons. And that, yeah, that's fine. And never looked back. They bought an organ. I started learning to play on that. I used to be up on a morning 6 o'clock getting ready for school. I'd spend half an hour, 45 minutes prior to you know, after breakfast, practicing and going through the stuff, quick change for the school bus, back home, kick my shoes off, school bag down, another half an hour practice and things like that.
And the neighbours loved you.
Well, luckily it was a detached house. But
you imagine they're brushing the teeth again, you know.
Well, luckily, actually, both neighbours was sort of quite fascinated by it and often asked for requests. So if it was a nice summer's day and the windows were open, a head would pop up at the window. I said, oh, can you play that one again? I enjoyed that one. You know, so it's the best form of soundproofing. Just find out what the neighbours' favourite tunes are and just keep playing those and they love it.
I was going to say no, because that's what I mean. I think, you know, when I first encountered your playing on the North Pier, first of all, it was what I like about that is something very relaxing about sitting, you know, because it can be windy, can't it?
Yes.
So you're holding on to your clothes on a deck chair, you know, and the sea's lapping up underneath, and you're thinking, oh, this is going to hang out, and then but you're playing away, and it was just so relaxing. It takes you away into something. I don't know what it is, but you float away. And what I liked about you is you were the first one that I'd seen that interacted with the audience. You know, you'd ask them what they want, and I'm going to play this next. And I think my favourite piece that you've ever played is, I don't know the right title, but I think it's Been Around the World with You. I think Bill Owen wrote the lyrics and Gracie Fields sang All Around the World.
So Lucky in My Life.
Yeah, similar. That. And I just remember thinking, wow, you know, these are really nice songs. And when you've only heard the song sung, you realise the craftsmanship of the music. Absolutely. You know, when you hear somebody picking out these little bits out of what you boys call them on top. And I remember saying, oh, this is really nice, you know. And then, of course, I think you gun-shot me into buying your CDs. And you will buy them.
Whatever the Yorkshireman.
Yeah, all 10 of them. You know. No, but they are brilliant. Anybody who hasn't been lucky enough to see you live, I would say go and buy CDs, because you've got a really nice collection of songs on there, and it is, even now, you know, we play them here in the studio sometimes, it's just nice music to listen to, you know, I find that wonderful. But there was a famous organist at the North Pier prior to you who'd been there years, called Raymond Wallbank, am I right?
Had indeed, 31 years.
Yeah, now I found there's a funny thing on the net, you know, Kevin, and I just laughed when I was looking him up the other day. There's a picture of him, it's for an album.
I think I know the one.
You know what I mean? And today I was just saying to the young boys who work for me, I said, you know, you would not get away with this now. He's on the North Pier, sitting there, big sideburns, yes. 70s suit, and for some inexplicable reason, there's a girl with a bikini just lying next to him. Going,
That's right. It's one of those typical 1970s albums, isn't it? They were all like that.
he just looks like, who's this woman who's lying there? She's looking at him like she adores him. I thought, who thought this was a good idea? It's like, looks, weird. But what was, did you ever meet him? What was he like? What was the magic of him,
Well, it's amazing because I said Raymond spent 31 years there.
Long time.
An awful long time, He was the famous organist on North Pier at the same time that Reg Dixon was at the Tower.
So
they're both contemporaries.
Like,
So Blackpool had a really strong tradition of organ music, and still has, of course. But Raymond was a lovely man. I did a couple of concerts for Raymond as a guest, and he sent me a lovely note when I got the job there, and just said all the best, and don't forget the sun cream. Remember that? Don't forget the sun cream.
You didn't need it much though, Kevin.
No. It was more WD-40 to cover the rust.
More of a brolly,
but Raymond was lovely, and the thing is with Raymond, he was, shall we say, a traditional organist. So it was a Hammond organ type sound. It was very much seaside type music. Sing-alongs were the main part of his show. Yeah. Now, I'd never actually heard Raymond in situ at North Pier, so it was quite daunting turning up for the first day, filling another man's shoes who had been there for so long and became such an institution.
Well, everybody knew him, and he was in I think the way you could acclimatise just how famous he was, when you used to get days, as Les Dawson said, brochures, holiday brochures, he was pictured. I always remember seeing things like the North, South, and they would detail what these people were on, and there was a Dixieland show bar, wasn't there, all that sort of stuff, and he was there, and I thought, wow, that's a commitment, because if he suddenly had an argument, or he didn't want to do it anymore, he's gone out in that brochure. And the other thing I think that they don't do now is they would have a big sign up outside as you were walking along, and you could go in for free, just listen to him, and you think now it's kind of like become a niche thing. And for him, as you were rightly saying, his fame was huge. I think he's slightly forgotten, sadly, now. I mean, in the organ world, I think people remember him. But I think the outsiders would think, well, and you kind of wonder, do you know how he got the job on there? How did he get started?
I honestly don't. He was playing in certainly a couple of the hotels in Blackpool at the time. I think he was playing at the Metropole on the front. And then they saw him there and said, would you come down and do some sessions in the Sun Lounge? Because before that, of course, it was in the North Pier Orchestra, Tony and the North Pier Orchestra.
Some lovely pictures of that, isn't there? Can you imagine?
Marvellous. The Sun Lounge is a big place. It seats 700 people in capacity. So, and I think basically Tony decided to retire with the North Pier Orchestra. They'd seen the success and the popularity of the organ in the Tower Ballroom, in the Winter Gardens. Thought,
and less wages.
Less wages. We're having some of that. And Raymond happened to be in the right place at the right time. Wow. But I remember the first session I ever played there, it was quite daunting because my style of playing is very, very different to what Raymond's was. And mine was sort of more orchestral, so we had the sounds of the big band, the string orchestras, Mantovani, etc. And probably, without sounding unkind, maybe a wider sort of repertoire of things that I was bringing to there. But of course, the last thing I wanted to do was have sudden change from what people were used to hearing.
Oh, because they would say, wouldn't they?
That's right.
Not like Raymond.
Exactly. That would be terrible. So I started off with all the usual sort of sing-along and seaside type of music, and then bit by bit, a couple of times per session, I'd throw in a piece of Mantovani or Glenn Miller, a bit of big band, songs from the shows. And after about 3-4 weeks, people were not only requesting tunes, they were requesting sounds. So it was like, please play some Glenn Miller, please would you play some more big band, please would you play Mantovani. So
you're doing well then.
So that was it, and actually, the sing-alongs type of things ended up being the last sort of 5 minutes of the show, and that was it. But the rest of it was pretty much either show-based or music, songs from the shows, films, some great music of the 50s and 60s and things like that, so very different to Raymond.
I have to ask you about the North Pier because it is, I know that, a magical place, really. I remember one day you were kind enough to take me into the empty theatre. Do you remember?
I do.
And I heard footsteps. Do you remember me saying, Kevin, where are you? Because you said, it could be a ghost. What? Is it haunted? Have you ever seen anything? Because the theatre is, again, you walk down there and you forget all the greats like the Mac Monroes, the Beverly Sisters, Tommy Trinder. Anybody who was anybody, Morecambe and Wise, have appeared on that. And I always find this fascinating, about this, Kevin, that they've all have to do the same journey. You know, and it's not like a theatre where you can sneak in that door, go in this door. They have to walk down and... Yeah, because I read somewhere that Matt Monro, it was so windy, he slipped and broke his elbow. Because he got blown over and then did his elbow in, you know. And you think, but he carried on, typically, naturally. But, is it haunted or is that a myth? And what's your memories of when you're in that theatre?
It's really odd, actually, because although it looks like a big Nissan nut from the outside, it's the most unassuming building you could ever imagine. You look at the theatres of Brighton Pier and things like that, there were big pavilions and all, lots of Indian influences, of course, with Brighton. And the thing with North Pier building was a temporary building in 1939, supposedly to last the war out, and it's still there.
Which says that they were good then,
exactly, and it's an absolute cavern of a place inside, 1,500 seats. Wow. So a big theatre bar, and when you think of most modern theatres now as sort of 600-700 seats, that's twice the size.
Well, if you get 200 people now, it's a good audience, isn't it?
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So you wonder how they could fill a place like that now.
Yeah, and 2 shows a night.
Yeah.
In those days.
Yeah.
But I remember walking in there for the first time and just being awestruck really with the sheer size of the place, because it's like the TARDIS. It doesn't look all that big from the outside.
I did that because you walk in and there's that little sort of foyer bit, and you think, it's quite twee, and then you go in, and then when you push those doors back, you do forget that you are floating on water. It is a bit like that. And when you get a very good produced show in there with the lighting and everything, I mean, I was lucky enough to see the Crankies. I don't know, it's strange, isn't it, what you remember? I remember being backstage there once with the Crankies and Victoria Wood for some reason.
Right.
You know what I mean?
On the same bill?
Yeah, no, they were literally just in the dressing room.
Oh, right.
And somebody walked in drag and nobody said anything. And, I thought, okay, And Victoria was a very shy, unassuming lady, lovely, talented lady, but very shy and unassuming. And she must have been a fan of the Crankies or something like that. And I only realised she was in the dressing room. And I went to it's a classic story, isn't it? I said, do you mind if I use the jokes? And the man of the Crankies said to me, "Oh, you just have to surprise it when you flush it." I thought it was brilliant, and he wasn't joking either, Kevin, because I thought, because you're putting your foot and you think, is this safe? Is this safe? I remember Ken Dodd said he could feel the water coming up, under the stage.
You can certainly feel the theatre move, because of course it's on stilts over the water. So particularly at high tides, which are sort of autumn time, of course, in the height of the illuminations period, when you've sort of 1,000 people in there and the sea's lashing up, you can certainly feel the theatre move.
Did you find that nerve-wracking?
Yes.
I'm glad you said that.
It frightened the life out of me. I remember once playing there in the Sun Lounge, and it was in the days when the jetty was still there then, before that was lost in a storm.
Yeah.
And I was playing away. There might have only been 40 or 50 people that braved the weather to come down. It's blowing a howling gale.
And you're on holiday.
And then you're on holiday, that's right. But we enjoyed ourselves. And I just saw this huge wave coming in. I'm thinking, this is going to be interesting. It hit the jetty, it came over the top of the jetty, and I'm thinking, and you've seen it on its way in, and you're thinking, it's going to hit the bulkhead of the pier in a moment, this. And it hit the bulkhead of the pier, big bang and a clatter, and the pier shook. Now, what they have in the floorboards, of course, is what they call water release traps, and that's why you can see through.
Oh, I see.
So it's not a solid floor.
I thought they just hadn't finished it.
So I watched this, and you end up with a big spurt of water coming up out of that. And the next thing I hear is, and a fountain had appeared of water directly under a lady's seat. She was absolutely drenched. I couldn't do anything for laughing. I was really, luckily I knew the lady very well, and I was just in tears. Laughing at this.
Because you do think about that, people forget that. I mean, another friend that is sadly missed is a gentleman who did a lot for Blackpool Entertainment, the lovely Cyril Clitchlow.
Yes.
Now, I know you were a friend of his, but so much stuff he gave to the museum, isn't there? And when you look at it, he had a great wealth of knowledge about what had gone on there. And when you meet people like that, you realise that you are, like you say, when you're playing in something like that, you're following so many greats. You don't realise it at the time because it's in your moment, you think, oh, well, So let me take you back again to the tower. Talk to me through, so your first time on the tower, and you've come up on organ, as they say, and you have to do that were you nervous?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, there you are. You sat beneath the stage.
Because it's nerve-wracking under there, isn't it?
Yeah, and still to this very day, it's tradition. There's only one tune that you can play to bring the Wurlitzer up, and that's the tune that Reginald Dixon played for all his career there at the time. You know, I do like to be beside the seaside.
Imagine if he thought, I don't want to play that today. I'm a bit tired of that one.
Yeah. And I remember a German film crew coming round to the North Pier once, and we did an interview, and they did some filming, and the lady producer said, yes, there is one tune I would like you to play. I wonder if you could do that for me. So I said, yeah, certainly. If I know it, I'll certainly play it. She said, yes. Do you know the tune "Besides the Seaside is Where I Like to Be Being"? I think I might know the one you mean. but there you are. You sat at the console beneath the stage, thinking I must be the only Yorkshireman working in a pit this afternoon. I
love those old jokes, Kevin.
and you pressed the button. You went to the first few chords of "Besides," and it really is iconic.
Yeah,
it really is iconic.
Yeah.
You know, what people often forget is that most of these instruments rose majestically from the stage. Yeah. The Tower Wurlitzer is like an ejector seat.
Oh.
You're up at the floor, stage level before your fingers off the button.
Oh.
So it really is like an ejector seat.
And how does it come up? Does somebody wind it? Or
no, it's motorised.
Button. Oh,
it's motorised.
Okay.
It's on a chain-driven lift and things. And that was put in there in the 1950s.
Because it famously got gutted, didn't it, with fire? Yes. I think at 58 when they reopened it or something like that. So it just proves how popular this place was because they put it back together. I mean, incredibly beautiful when you look around the plaster work and all that sort of stuff. So after your first concert, do you know what you played when you first came up?
I did. Well, it was beside the seaside, and then the first dance was a waltz, and I chose again as a tribute. Really, there was Reginald Dixon often did the changeover with the band. Yeah, they always played a tune called "Fascination," and that's the tune I played. I thought there's only really having played beside the seaside, there is only one tune that you can do in this magnificent building, and that's "Fascination."
Wow. And then when you got into that, did you think, I'm home now? Because explain the mirrors. The mirrors are there so you can see them dancing, and whether they're enjoying. Because obviously I mean, I liken you to a one-man disco, and I don't mean that rudely, anybody, but what I mean is you have to keep them on the floor. That's
absolutely
the gig, Yes. So when you're looking at them, if you think, that cha-cha-cha didn't go well with this lot, so let's go back into a waltz or a samba or something. Some of the quality of the dancing on that floor as well, from just I don't know if it's really, but just the normal people who come in, incredible. I'd love to. I think that will be more interesting Strictly to me because they know it all and they're very, nimble. And you're thinking, how did you learn?
It's quite easy to forget, of course, how important the Tower Ballroom is in the dancing world. It's iconic all over the world. There are people that come from China, Japan, America, Canada to dance in the Tower Ballroom.
Yeah, I would if I could do it.
Me too. I've got two left. I cannot dance a step. I'll tell you a little story. There was an event we had at the Tower, and one of the regulars said, "Look, when the band's on, I'm going to get you up and I'm going to dance the waltz with you." And I said, no, honestly, I can't dance a step. And, no, look, there'll be 1,000 people in. We'll go into the centre of the floor and we'll just shuffle around. No one will know you're there. You've not got to do any fancy dancing or anything like that. And it was Andy Pryor in his orchestra.
Oh, great band.
Now, Andy had heard this and had a word with the follow spot operator.
Oh.
So there we were in the centre of the floor where no one can see. And we were just shuffling around and they decided to do a spot prize waltz.
Oh.
So the band stopped and they said, right, wherever the spotlight, this is who gets the prize. Us.
Oh.
So I was there trying to be inconspicuous and not quite shy and embarrassed by all this, and Andy just burst into fits of laughter.
Because when I've had a go, it's like dragging a J-cloth round a floor.
That's me.
And you look at it and you think, but people will be surprised that you create such wonderful music, but you can't do it.
I can't dance a step. Believe it or not, you ask most musicians, when it comes to dancing, they have no sense of time and rhythm.
Oh, really? Oh.
And I think that's because you're so used to either playing or drumming or that kind of thing. When that's taken away from you, where does the rhythm come from? It comes from the instrument,
Yeah, spot on. Now, as ever, we're always short of time, so I want to get on to talk to me about the Astoria Centre, this brilliant venue that you've created in the heart of South Yorkshire, Barnsley, for all those. But how did that come around and why did you create it? Because it is a magical place that's got again, already a huge following. I mean, you've just did a sellout New Year's Day thing, Christmas, ball thing. And, again, it's you wouldn't know it existed if you didn't know about the world, if you know what I mean.
That's right.
So we want the world to know about you.
Right.
So tell me, how did all that come about?
It came about really about, it must be about 7-8 years ago. We were sat down having a cup of tea and a chat with some friends, and we were talking about how a lot of these theatre organs, etc., were in storage, and it was a bit of a shame that they couldn't be accessible by the public. The thing about putting them into theatres these days is access. The theatres are being used for other things, more commercial events, which is great. And we said, no, we don't want to do that. I want something where we could get 24/7 access. What could we do? So we came up with this bright idea in a moment of madness to get a warehouse complex and convert it into a ballroom.
And it does look like a ballroom.
It does.
And when I saw your
1930s
pictures, I thought,
style.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, and when we created it, basically, we restored the organ, which is another passion of mine. It is not only playing them, but that's the history of it.
I love your pictures on Facebook when you say, spend the day doing the console, something, and I think, I don't know what that means, but he looked busy.
Yeah, I mean, covered in glue paint or anything else. It's all right being on stage in the suit and the dicky bow and all the rest of it. That's what most people see. If they were to see behind the stage, when I've got the overalls on and the paintbrush in my hand and the chisels and the planes and the woodworking stuff, actually, as silly as it sounds, that's actually where I feel probably most at home these days. Is in the restoration side of it. But we created this whole new complex where we restored an instrument, we installed it. It's going to be one of the largest theatre organs in the whole of the country.
Wow.
We've actually got another 2 instruments that are going in there, so there'll be 3 theatre organs in there. There's a ballroom, we have concerts, we've had brass band concerts, choir concerts in there as well. So it really is, it's wonderful. That's in Barnsley.
Where is it in Barnsley if you want to go? You can tell us. Everybody wants to know.
Right, the Astoria Centre is Unit 16A, Metro Trading Centre at Bark Green in Barnsley.
And you've got a website?
We have got a website, which is... I'm trying to think what the website... I never looked at it. Which is pennystone-compton.co.uk. But if you type in... the Astoria Centre Barnsley, it'll take you there.
And I honestly can't recommend it enough. I think it's a brilliant thing you've done, because in a sense you've brought it into a place that people wouldn't expect it. You can have a bit of Blackpool on a terribly winter's Thursday afternoon, lose yourself with a nice pot of tea and a couple of scones, dance your afternoon away. I just think it should be on a government NHS funding thing. Honestly, you must, because people must love it. It's something for them to go to.
Well, often in the publicity we announce it as Blackpool comes to Barnsley. Phil Kelsall, the principal organist at the Tower Ballroom, comes down half a dozen times a year to do concerts and dances for us down
and they're all
there.
sellouts, aren't they?
Absolutely.
That says to me that it doesn't. If you give the public what they want, then they will come. And it doesn't really matter where it is, because when I first saw it, I thought, well, where is that place? Because I was thinking, I've been around, I've never seen that building before, And then when you explained, I thought, wow, you've done an incredible job. So, good luck. I hope it all carries on. It is lovely that you've done that. I want to finally ask you, if for anybody watching this today who wants to be you, and don't be bashful, there are lots of people like you watched that lady years ago, and you thought, oh, I fancy doing that without the chiffon dress.
Yes.
But what is the role? How would you suggest getting into this world? Because obviously, you've got a passion, you learned to play and all that sort of stuff. But is there a key to it? Do you need to join a group, a society? How would you go about it?
I would say listen to as wide variety of music as possible. If you decide that you want to learn to play the organ or the theatre organ, listen to some orchestral music, listen to some of the past greats like Reginald Dixon, Phil Kelsall, etc. that we've mentioned. And that gives you the inspiration on how to use the instrument and that. But basically, my biggest piece of advice I would say is make it your own. Reginald Dixon couldn't look to others for inspiration, and the theatre organists of the 30s and 40s, they were the leaders, they were the pioneers of that era. They created their own styles, and I would still say to this day that's the main thing. Own the instrument yourself. And make it your own.
So develop your own sound, basically.
Yes.
Which is hard because,
Yes.
as you say, the longer it's gone on, you know, there is a style. I mean, I remember when I was a kid, a famous organist in the Yorkshire area called Arnold Loxton.
Yes, knew Arnold very well.
Yeah, he came to our school, which was great. You know, when you think about that, Kevin, you know, you don't appreciate that at the time, but he came along to, I think, give a chat in some music lesson, you know, and this poor girl. She was doing the Tennessee Duck walk, caught herself on the trap. Anyway, there was a few acts and they went wrong, you know. And he bravely battled on as all you know, maestros do. But I remember being, as you said, with this woman, very impressed by him because he made it sound exciting. And although I can't play a note, as you know, I love the world of what you people do. I love to go and see it live. I think it's a wonderful sound, and I don't think it's a sound really that will ever really go out of fashion. I think it will always have, you know, an area, a genre, if you like, that people like.
I always tend to think that it's a little bit like the steam sort of railway movement. You know, it's 50 years ago that sort of mainline steam, but it doesn't stop people from enjoying it to this very day.
Opening stations again, don't they? Exactly. You know, Dr. Beecham wasn't right, you see.
Not with everything.
You know, can I ask you finally, with Strictly, I think a lot of people would love to see the organ coming up at the start of Strictly. I think that really would put an extra touch of Blackpool magic on it, because the Strictly week, I don't know if you know this, but ratings wise is the highest next to the final. It really is that big. So it proves again that people love it, you know. But I think rather than doing all these silly you know, backstage things of when they go and look at zoos to get inspired or whatever, you know, fannying around, you know, dancing on the promise. I mean, you think, remind people why this resort is so famous. If they asked you, Kevin, and Louise Rainbow at Strictly, if you're watching, if they asked you, would you love to do that? Would the Strictly coming up, started it all, and Tess and Claudia coming out?
Oh, that would be marvellous. You know, I think that the ballroom is used for dancing every day of the year. You know, it's not just for the Strictly final. There's
people
dancers
that,
in
don't
there.
They?
Absolutely.
When we go there, you need to go Tuesday afternoon. It's lovely.
Yeah.
Afternoon tea.
That's right. People are in there. They're dancing. The organ is the main source of musical entertainment, and you know, providing the music for dancing. And it would be nice, I think, for viewers at home that haven't been there, just to see what goes on the rest of the year.
Because they don't remind you of that. They say, oh, it's a beautiful ballroom and everything, and all the dancers say, oh, I can't wait to dance. But there's such a history, and I think a lot of the pros have danced there, you know, when they were climbing up the ladder, and I think they should do more to promote it as well, because you know, the Empress Ballroom, which is in the Winter Gardens, they do a lot of competitions in there, don't they?
World Championships.
Very, you know. Do you remember as a kid though seeing Come Dancing on the telly?
I do.
I loved it, didn't you?
I do.
Because they always remind you of Barry and Stuart Hargreaves from Heidi High. Do you remember? They always looked a bit prissy, you know.
Well, it was Angela Rippon, I think, that presented it in sort of my form year.
Yeah, I remember Terry Wogan, a little bit of Katie Boyle, and
Rosemary
going back Ford.
Yes,
she
I
did
do.
A little bit,
Yes.
But we all used to watch it, and I always wondered why they've never brought back the pros. Why they just keep doing with the celebrities, and you think, oh, are you? You know, it's like a police lineup. You don't know who they are, do you?
I used to watch it as well for inspiration for music. You know, in them days, I think it was Andy Ross, wasn't it? That was the band for Strictly. You know, the musical arrangements were as good as it ever got. I must admit, a few times when I've tuned in now to use the old Al McCogan song, I can't tell a waltz from a tango.
I used to love Pocket Transistor by Al McCogan. Oh, we're having a memory section this morning. Listen, Kevin Grunill, it's been lovely to talk to you this morning. Thank you so much for coming in live today. And if fans want to get close to you this afternoon, where are you going to be? You're in the Troxy?
We're at the Troxy down in Limehouse for a wonderful concert this afternoon. 3:30 start with the American organist Walter Stroney.
Kevin, lovely.
Pleasure.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for watching us this morning live. We'll see you soon.